Hi, this is Dr. Sacha McBain, clinical psychologist and associate director of the Center for Trauma Prevention, Recovery, and Innovation at the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences. Welcome to video 3 in our series, CPR for PTSD, How to Calm and Prevent Realarm for Post-Traumatic Stress Disorders. If you're just tuning in, you can go to the description box to see videos 1 and 2, where we talk all about trauma, trauma-related disorders, and emotions, how they're related to trauma, and we also gave a review of trauma-related triggers. This video is going to be all about the many types of coping skills that you can use to cope with trauma. It's important to say that no one skill is a fix-all. Some of these skills may work great for you, while others may not. Finding the skills that work for you is really personal, and so it's important that you learn and practice these skills and try them out to see if they're going to be helpful for you. This is just a reminder that a lot of the skills that we're going to be talking about focus on things that you can do on your own. Healing from trauma includes the things that we're going to be talking about, but it can also include working within your community or engaging in advocacy or activism to change policies and practices that lead people to experience trauma. So this is an introductory video. It's designed to be a menu of different skills that you can try, but it doesn't include everything. And so if I leave something out, don't think that it's because it doesn't work. There's lots of different ways to heal from trauma, and this is just a sampling of some of the things that you can try. I've broken down the coping skills into different categories that focus on how they help you cope. And so the first category is physiological coping. These are skills that can help you reduce anxiety and tension in your body. The next is emotion-focused coping. These are skills that can help you process or deal with emotions when you feel upset. Cognitive coping. These are skills to help you distract from unhelpful or hurtful thoughts. Experiential coping. These are skills that include activities that you can try to improve your well-being. Sensory coping. These skills help calm your mind and body. They're similar to physiological coping, but just different enough that we put them in their own category. Spiritual coping. These are skills that include activities that can provide you spiritual comfort. This can include organized religion, but it can also be more existential or focused on living a value-based life. And the final grouping of skills is problem-focused coping. Oftentimes when people experience trauma, there can be lots of different types of problems that come up or stressors that contribute to how you're feeling. And so these skills are really designed to help you find solutions to those problems. As I talked about in video 1, the mind and the body are connected. When we experience trauma, it can throw our body out of whack, and our reactions can really start to have an impact on our health. And so being able to calm yourself physiologically not only can help you in the moment, but help for your health overall, your physical health. And so the first skill that I'm going to be talking about is deep breathing and imagery. This is to help you manage those extreme emotions in the moment, but I also encourage you to practice it just day to day and make it a habit in order to help reduce your baseline stress or your overall stress that you feel day to day, even when you're not reacting to a trauma trigger. For deep breathing, I recommend that you sit or lay down in a comfortable place. Put your hand on your chest and on your belly, and then breathe in for 4 seconds and out for 4 seconds. You really want to be able to feel your chest staying still and your belly filling up with air when you breathe in and getting smaller when you breathe out. When you do deep breathing like this, what it does is it actually lowers your blood pressure, lowers your heart rate, it focuses your mind a little bit more. So it's a really, really simple but important skill. I'm going to link in the description box other resources to help you practice these skills that I'll be talking about today, because some of them can be hard to do on your own at first. And so check out the description box for a guided practice of all of these skills that I'm going to be talking about today. When you're doing deep breathing, you can also add imagery. This is the idea of adding in some visuals to your breathing, either closing your eyes or keeping your eyes low, and imagine a calm scene or your favorite place, or you can create an image all your own and just really start to fill in what it looks like. What do you see? What do you hear, smell, taste, feel? And you just want to keep creating that image as you're continuing to breathe, and just doing the exercise as long as you need to. It can be, if you want to set a timer, you can set a timer for 1 minute or 5 minutes or 15 minutes, or just do the exercise as long as you need to in order to feel more relaxed or calm or less emotional. The next skill that I want to talk about is something called progressive muscle relaxation. This is to help you know what your body feels like when it's relaxed. Oftentimes we go through our world really tense and we don't even recognize how tense we are until it gets pointed out to us somehow. And so one way to test this is, as you're watching this, if you can, try to put your shoulders up as close as you can to your ears. Just kind of scrunch them up and then let them drop. Just notice how low your shoulders drop when you do that. It's kind of like when you push a button in and it pops out. So progressive muscle relaxation is all about slowly tensing different parts of your body in order to help them relax. And so this is something that I would definitely start with doing a guided exercise for, and I'll link that down in the description box. Another really important physiological coping skill is exercise. We all hear about the benefits of exercise, and really it's about movement. When we experience trauma, we store a lot of energy in our bodies. We can feel really keyed up. We can feel fatigued, exhausted, really jumpy, easily startled. And so exercise or just movement helps you work out some of that energy to help your body feel a little bit more relaxed. So it reduces stress, and then it has all the other benefits that we know about. And you can do this at different abilities too. So if you're somebody who's able-bodied and you can go for a jog or go to the gym, that's great. But if you are not fully able-bodied in whatever way, adjust this to your needs and your abilities, and just getting small movements into your daily routine can really make a difference for your mood and help reduce that reactivity in your body that people experience after trauma. Let's talk about emotion-focused coping skills. The key to emotion-focused coping is to first be able to identify different emotions that you are experiencing or that you've experienced in the past. Oftentimes when we experience trauma, there's so many different emotions and thoughts that come up, it can be hard to make sense of it all. And so taking some time to really create your own definitions of emotions can be really helpful in helping you pick apart what an emotion means. So one thing that I recommend is finding an emotion wheel that you like. Emotion wheels usually start by having the core emotions in the center: anger, fear, love, joy, surprise, and sadness. And then they grow out of that to have more descriptive words of those emotions that vary based on intensity. So for example, if we take sadness, we can expand that into being disappointed or shameful or despair. And so there's these different levels of sadness that exist. And so sometimes when we just say sad, it doesn't seem to quite capture it. And so expanding your vocabulary around emotions and knowing how those emotions feel in your body or what you're thinking when you experience those emotions is a really great first step to healing from trauma. If you find that you're having a hard time labeling emotions, one helpful way is to identify the physical sensations or your bodily sensations and how that connects to an emotion word. So for example, when we experience anger, it tends to be a lot of energy in our head and face and upper body. So it's like that tension in your arms, the clenching of the jaw. You might feel flushed in your face. And so thinking about a time that you knew now that you were really angry and trying to tune into how you felt in your body. What did you feel? What thoughts were running through your head? And thinking about examples of all the different emotions and times that you felt that in your life. What does it feel like for you to feel happy? Did it feel like there was warmness in your body and that you felt a little bit lighter and maybe your heart was fluttering? Or when you were sad, did you notice that you didn't really feel anything in your arms or legs? They felt kind of numb and you felt tightness in your throat and in your chest. And so starting to identify those physical sensations can help you label what you are feeling. The next important part of emotion-focused coping, once you've identified an emotion and the bodily sensation, is to ride the wave of the emotion. What this means is that you're not trying to change it, you're not trying to push it away, and you're not trying to take hold of it. It's about knowing that the emotion will pass and try to recall moments where you've had other emotions. And remembering that this emotion too will pass just like an ocean wave. Oftentimes after a trauma, we can experience changes in how we're thinking about ourselves, others, and the world. And that can influence how we feel and how we behave, and can sometimes keep us stuck when we're after experiencing trauma. And so cognitive coping strategies are really focused on changing how we're thinking or helping us cope with the negative thoughts that sometimes come up after a trauma. The first skill that I want to talk about is distraction. Sometimes it's important to take a break from thoughts and focus on something that you like. This is a great tool if you are thinking about the same thing over and over again in a way that's not really helpful. To distract yourself from these thoughts can help you focus on things that you want to bring into your life. So for example, if I were to say, don't think about a yellow Jeep, likely the first thing that comes into your mind is a yellow Jeep. That works the same way for any thoughts that we might be having. And so oftentimes when people experience trauma, they avoid thoughts and feelings, and that can look like, don't think about what happened, don't think about what happened. And of course, then that means that that's all that you're thinking about. What distraction is doing is, rather than putting a spotlight on what you don't want to think about, distraction helps you put your energy to things that you want to bring into your life, whether it's your relationships or things that you enjoy, like your favorite music or TV show. Distraction can be a way to take a break from those negative thoughts and to not put such a harsh spotlight on those thoughts and bring in the things that you want. Distraction works well in the moment, but it shouldn't be your only skill that you use because it can sometimes turn into avoidance. Another helpful cognitive coping strategy is mindfulness. We all have been hearing about mindfulness, and there's tons of great free apps and videos to help you learn mindfulness. One way that this can be helpful is that similar to distraction, it helps you to focus your attention and to quiet unhelpful thoughts. And there's lots of different ways that you can do mindfulness. Sometimes I find that people have a hard time going straight into the mindfulness where you're kind of quieting your mind and just focusing on thoughts as they come in, that can feel a little, it can feel a little much when you're first learning mindfulness. And so one thing that I like to do and teach people is to instead take mindfulness as focusing on one task at a time and all the details of doing that thing. So for example, like if you're doing the dishes, just focus on doing the dishes. What does the water feel like? What does the dish look like? What do you smell? Do you smell the soap? Do you smell the food? And just kind of really focusing on all of the experience of washing a dish, almost like you're an alien who's never washed a dish before and you're really taking in every single detail of what you're doing. That is one strategy of mindfulness that helps us break the habit of multitasking when we're thinking about what we need to do tomorrow or the next day, and we're thinking about what we said to our boss the other day. And so it's just your mind gets really cluttered. And so mindfulness and focusing on one task at a time and really just focusing your attention there can be one way to quiet your mind without doing something that feels too out of reach or uncomfortable when you're just learning mindfulness. Another really important skill for cognitive coping is being able to separate emotions from facts. Sometimes we think that because we feel a certain way, it must be true. And this is something that we call emotional reasoning. For example, if I feel guilty, then I must have done something bad. And that isn't always true. And so you can challenge those thoughts and feelings that you have by asking yourself, what are the facts? And kind of trying to create a more balanced point of view of how you're feeling or what you're thinking about a current situation. This can be really hard to do on your own if you've never done it before. And so there's a great app that I recommend that's available on iPhone and Android phones. It's something called Woebot, Woebot. It's a really great app that helps you to find more balanced ways of thinking in order to feel better. The last cognitive coping skill that I want to talk about is be kind when talking to yourself. Oftentimes people can be really hard on themselves and say unkind things like, I'm a failure or I'm weak. And this thinking is really hurtful and it can keep you stuck. So instead of being hard on yourself, try being kind to yourself instead. So for example, I'm doing the best that I can, or I'm getting mentally stronger. You don't have to, make something up that is not true, but you can kind of find a little bit more balanced perspective when you're being really hard on yourself. Experiential coping skills are all about doing things to help you feel better. And so I think about different types of activities. The first is planned activities. Each day you can set a goal and make a point to achieve it. After trauma, oftentimes people can feel really disempowered or feel like they can't do the things that they used to do, or they're not themselves anymore. And so building in planned activities or setting a goal can be a really important coping strategy and can be really healing for people who've experienced trauma. You want to remember to set SMART goals. SMART goals are specific, meaning that they're detailed, they're measurable, you can track your progress, they're attainable, something that is challenging but is still possible, they're realistic, something that can be done and that you have the tools to start, and time-bound. This means that there's a deadline that you've set to achieve the goal. You can also think about integrating pleasant activities. This is something that you do for fun. This is to help you feel happy or calm or relaxed. It can be something that you do by yourself or with other people. And so if you have a hard time finding a pleasant activity, you can think about what you used to enjoy or activities that you would like to try. But we know that healing from trauma is not just getting rid of the negative experiences or the negative thoughts and feelings. It's about bringing back in positive experiences, and so pleasant activities can be one way to do that. The next is put off activities. A put off activity is something that you have been putting off and is now hanging over your head. It could be a pile of laundry, a sink full of dishes, or an errand that you've been avoiding. And while it may not sound helpful to do a put off activity, taking the time to tackle these projects can actually give you a sense of relief and help you feel like you've accomplished something. PERSONABLE activities is something that you do with others. It allows you to connect with other people. If you have social anxiety, you may have to keep trying at this. So it means like you might have to act like you're less anxious than you really are and kind of build yourself up. You could set a time to meet up with people that you know, like friends or family. But if you're not ready for that, or if you don't feel like you have people in your life that you want to have contact with, you could even start by giving a stranger a smile or saying hello. Even those really brief moments of personal connection can be really powerful. The last experiential coping skill I want to talk about is advocacy or activism, working to raise awareness or make changes in policies or practices that can lead to trauma, like discrimination or assault, can really help boost self-esteem and increase your sense of power while making a difference. Sensory coping skills are skills that you can use to calm down when you feel overwhelmed or when other skills are not working. If you think back to our video 2, where we talked about the window of tolerance, the window of tolerance is when you are present, you're able to deal with your emotions, you can think clearly. But oftentimes when we're triggered or overwhelmed, we can go into hyper arousal, where it's really strong emotions, feeling out of control, or hypoarousal, that freeze response or feeling numb. Sensory coping skills can help you get back into the window of tolerance. Grounding is a really helpful skill that I recommend to pretty much everybody that I work with. Grounding can be really helpful when you are feeling overwhelmed or you're having unwanted memories. For people who experience something called dissociation, which when you feel either disconnected from your own body or you feel disconnected from the world, as if you're not really part of the world, you're watching it through the TV, you just feel really disconnected from your body. Grounding is a way to really come back into yourself and to ride the wave of difficult emotions. And so really it looks like being able to literally plant your feet on the ground and just start to focus on the sensation of what does it feel like to have your feet on the ground, noticing the weight of your feet, noticing the legs, the weight of your legs if you're sitting in a chair, noticing your back leaning against the surface if you're leaning against one, and just really feeling the heaviness of your physical body while doing some breathing, and then noticing things that are coming up in the room. What colors do you see? What objects do you notice in the room? And really it's designed when you're feeling outside of yourself to really pull you in by noticing physical sensation and noticing sensations around you. I will link a video for grounding to help you practice this skill. Another thing that can be really helpful is taking a sip of really cold water. So this is one way to really quickly become back in tune with your body and notice your physical sensations. And so getting a cool glass of water and just focusing on drinking the water and what the water feels like going through down your mouth, through your throat and into your stomach can really help you get back into your physical body and help calm you down. The last skill that I want to talk about in the sensory coping skill set is something that we call butterfly. And so if you think about how we calm babies, we tend to tap them, and so really butterfly is that. It's putting your arms across your body and then tap your hands on one side first and then the other side. And then you can kind of coordinate them like wings of a butterfly. And you can do it a little bit faster if you want, you can slow it down, but just making sure that it's relaxing. And just take time to notice any physical feelings that come up, positive or negative. Notice your breathing, your heart rate, your body tension, and just kind of changing how you're doing the butterfly to match what you need in that moment. You might even switch to rubbing or doing one at a time. There's lots of different ways to do this. And what that does is it really helps calm your body down. It's kind of like a memory from when you're a baby and, being calmed that way as a baby. There's just something about our bodies as humans that really respond to that butterfly effect. And so it might look silly, but it can work really well in the moment. Oftentimes after a trauma, people can feel like their world has been shaken. Their faith or their spirituality can come into question. And so for people who have organized religion, or even for people who don't, spiritual or existential coping skills can be really helpful in terms of giving you strength, helping you feel like you belong or that you have a purpose, or to feel comfort in the emotions that you're experiencing. For some people, this might look like prayer or meditation. It can be a really powerful tool to bring you strength, to help calm you down, to create a sense of safety. For other people, it might look like seeking purpose. So it will help you feel motivated and to make sense of why you're experiencing what you are and the difficulties of going through trauma treatment in order to get to the other side, something that you're seeking purpose, something you want to be reconnected to, how you want to engage in your life. Finding a deeper purpose to understand what you're currently going through can be a really helpful and powerful tool. If you're finding that you're having difficulty finding purpose in your life, you can ask yourself some questions. What do I love? What comes easy to me? What qualities do I enjoy expressing in the world? How do I enjoy expressing them? What is my perfect world? What would it look like, or how would I act? What is my heart telling me? All of these questions can help you get a little bit closer to finding purpose in your life. And then you can combine those questions with other skills that we've talked about to move towards making a plan, creating a SMART goal of how you're going to move closer to your purpose and your values in life. As we discussed, sometimes after trauma, people can have a hard time knowing what their values are or knowing what their boundaries are. And so taking some time to really reflect on, what do you value? What's important for you as a person? What characteristics do you really value? Dignity, trust, respect, and thinking about what those values mean to you and how you're currently living up to your values. And if you find that there's some room for growth in terms of how much you're living up to your values, consider what you would need to change and how you would move towards that. And really getting back in touch with your intuition and what's important to you can really change how you're engaging in relationships that have maybe been harmful in the past, or relationships that have been of great value to you, and how do you prioritize those? Understanding your values can really connect you with a deeper meaning and how to move forward when you need to make really difficult decisions in your life. Another spiritual coping strategy is to reconnect with cultural practices or ceremonies. Often after historical trauma, especially, Black, Indigenous, or other people of color can lose connection with cultural practices or ceremonies. And so reconnecting with ancestral or Indigenous practices can be an extremely powerful coping skill, especially if you're feeling like you're still seeking sense of purpose or identity. Looking back and connecting to practices that resonate with you can be a really important way to enrich your life and create that sense of meaning. After a trauma, people can have a lot of different types of problems in life. They can be problems that existed before, that the trauma has made it more difficult to cope with. So if you already were having a lot of financial stress, poverty, lack of employment, experiencing trauma can make it even more difficult to deal with those stressors. But Trauma can also create new stressors. So as a result of trauma, you might have lost a relationship that was really important to you, or a job, or even your physical ability might have changed. And so part of healing from trauma is not only working on yourself, but how to problem solve circumstances around you that are even contributing to the trauma, influencing your trauma responses, or have come about as a result of trauma. And so one way to do that through problem-focused coping is to think about, how do you assign and describe the problem? So for this skill, you want to ask yourself a set of questions. First, you want to assign the problem. Whose problem is it? Is it mine? And if so, when does it need to be solved? Oftentimes I hear people, are stressed about conflict in their family that doesn't really involve them, but of course it's still stressful and upsetting to them. And they might feel the urge to get involved in the conflict, and that can sometimes make things messier and more stressful. And so in that case, it's like, is that really your problem to solve? Can you support the people that you love and care about? Yes, absolutely. But it's not really your job to change how those two people are interacting with each other. You can only be there to support. And so once you recognize that it's not really your responsibility to fix it, that can relieve some of the stress, and you can then focus on supporting them in the ways that are important to you. Next, you can describe the problem. When did the problem happen? Who was involved? Where did it happen? And exactly what happened? You can then think about what can be changed about the problem. There might be parts of it that now that it's happened, it's done. You can't go and change what happened, but you might be able to change how people react or what steps happen next. And so you think about, what can I do to solve this problem? What could somebody else do? And what can we do to avoid this problem in the future? Another way to engage in problem solving is to think about the 3 O's. The first is to generate options. What are all the possible ways that you could respond? The second is to anticipate outcomes. What do you imagine will happen when you respond? And then third, order your preference. What option do you want to try? And then try to do it. What this does is it helps you break your problems down into smaller pieces. When we're overwhelmed, we're dealing with trauma, problems can feel so big and so overwhelming, and they likely are. And so breaking it down into these little smaller pieces, like puzzle pieces, can help it feel more manageable, and that you can take bite-sized pieces out of the problem until it's resolved. We've just reviewed a ton of different coping skills, and I really kind of kept them at surface level. And so it was really designed to just introduce you to the skills in the hopes that you would take some time to look a little bit deeper into the ones that you found interesting, that you haven't tried before, or you think might work for you based on the triggers that you've identified in video 2. So the next thing is, once you've identified some coping strategies that you find interesting, is to create a skills plan. And so this is taking some time to outline, what are my current coping skills? What am I doing from this list? Or what are some things that weren't mentioned that I'm already doing? And then think about, what would I like to try? And adding in some new coping skills, maybe one from each category or a couple that you really liked. And then just making a plan of a skill that you would like to try. Try a new one every week or every day, depending on what you want to do. And just really being mindful and taking a moment to really think about, how can I put this new skill into my life and see how it works for me? Take the time to identify what might get in the way of the skill, and then use problem solving to come up with ways to overcome that barrier. So if you know that making the time to practice a skill is a barrier for you, you can do some problem solving around that. Maybe you can schedule it into your calendar or set an alarm to remind you to practice your skill. I hope that you will feel inspired by this video to get back to some skills that you're using before, strengthen the skills that you're already using, and to try some new skills. This is all, again, just an introduction, and so check out the links in the description box to get some guided versions of the skills that I've talked about, some other resources, and some other ideas about how to integrate coping skills into your daily life. In our next video, in our last video, we're going to be talking about trauma treatments and how to make decisions about what treatment might be right for you. I hope that I'll see you then. Bye.